What is up, everybody? We are 48 hours away from a Sixers play-in game, a one game or nothing scenario where if they win, they go to the playoffs as the permanent 7 seed. And if they lose, they play the winner of the Hawks and Bulls to try to keep their season alive. I don't know what to expect. We've never been in this scenario, but as requested by the fans, we get the best in the business back together for one more hoorah before the playoffs begin. And honestly, it kind of feels like cramming in everything the night before a test, like trying to study for everything before a test, because who knows what's going to happen. We could say everything on our mind, and it's one of those games where the Sixers go 1 for 56 in the first half, and none of it matters. And then you're fighting for your life. So it is going to get very interesting. The 7 seed Sixers and the 8 seed Heat on Wednesday night. We are live on Philly Take with RB, Run It Back Philly, Pick Swap Media, a bunch of other channels. Romp's in the building. We got everybody in here, man. Chat, keep it going, get interactive. Let us know how you're feeling. What's the temperature like? Man, it's about to get crazy. And the best thing about it is that none of us have really talked about this even before the show. So I'm interested to hear what these guys think and gauge everybody's opinions. Fellas, how are we feeling?
Feels good, man. This is the time we're waiting for. That the 82 game grind is in the past, and honestly, I think I'm a voice of optimism up here. That I'm feeling all right about the Sixers team right now. We know it all depends on what they do. That it's not the rest of the East that scares me. It's what version of this Sixers team shows up.
Well said.
Yeah, I couldn't be more nervous. This doesn't even make any sense the way that I feel. I feel like I'm playing in the game. It's so just not. It shouldn't feel like this, but this is what sports do to us. And I hate a play-in game. It's ridiculous. It shouldn't exist. LeBron James made it up. And now, you just a play-in game. You're giving the Sixers too much of a chance to Sixer. You need more than one game. Just fluky, weird stuff can happen. But they're fine. If fluky stuff happens, it's not going to happen 2 games in a row. Worst case scenario, they end up facing Boston in the first round. I do think they take Miami Heat out, though. I don't think they lose this game. But it's not a good feeling. I don't like it.
Romp, how are we feeling, man?
Yeah. The play-in is the play-in is very scary as a fan. I'm gonna be, have butterflies all day long on Wednesday. We got to wait till Wednesday because the Flyers play on Tuesday. So shout out to the Flyers. But overall, I think it's a good it's a good opportunity to see what this team really is. I mean, if they're truly different, they'll take out the Miami Heat. But if they're the same old Sixers, they'll come out, miss 100 wide open shots, and allow Haywood Highsmith to take them down. So I think it's a good opportunity. They could easily lose, don't get me wrong, but the Sixers do seem different with Joel Embiid this season. So we'll just have to wait and see if they are different.
Yeah, I definitely think it's like one of those games where you're going to be on edge from start to finish. Anything can happen, and we know whether it's a team coached by Nurse or a team coached by Spo, like you're never out of it until the final whistle. So it's going to be very interesting. Random Gamer, $2 super chat. Appreciate, by the way, all the people in here getting active in the chat. He says F New York, F Miami, F Boston, and F Doc Rivers. So, yeah, it was a crazy finish to the season. And I don't know if you guys think Doc avoided the Sixers or what happened. And, we could look back and say if Kelly Oubre and that whole game against the Clippers went the other way, maybe we wouldn't be in the play-in. All this stuff, right? It is what it is. We're here. So we're going to preview the game, talk about what we think. I will say this, like coming into this game, I am confident. My heart tells me that the Sixers are better. They are the better team. They've played better with Joel Embiid back. They're 7-0. I mean, he's played in 5 of the games. So 5-0 with Joel since he's come back. They're 7-0. They're on an 8-game win streak, and they are the overall better team than Miami. But a couple things scare me, man. The Heat were in this same circumstance last year. Yeah, they lost the play-in game, but they won the second one. They ended up going to the finals. Like, they've been here. They know what it's like. And on top of that, it feels like Jimmy Butler always tends to rise to the occasion, especially against Philly in these type of games. So those are my initial concerns. Like, playoff Jimmy, is it a real thing? And is he going to make a cameo on Wednesday night and go possession for possession, unstoppable against Philly?
Yeah, and that's the $1,000,000 question. And this is where like my head and heart kind of separate here. That if you just asked me to objectively look at this, if you told me this was the basketball team we were facing and ripped the Miami Heat logos off of them, I would have zero fear for this team. That like when you look at their metrics, they're not in the top 10 in any offensive categories. They're pretty much middle of the pack across the board and everything, but they still have that Heat culture, Miami buzz to them. I'm hopeful that playoff Jimmy is not the same as play-in Jimmy. And I also would like to note that just last year, even before they went on this tear, they lost to the Chicago Bulls in the first round of that playing game. They lost their first playing game matchup, or I think it was the Atlanta Hawks, actually. But they did lose that first game matchup. So, like, they're capable of having clunkers at well. And with Jimmy specifically, man, I know this is famous last words, but he has not looked the same to me this year. That like the appeal of Jimmy Butler is he's this perfect blend of the size, the strength, the athleticism with still all that basketball skill. It doesn't feel like he has that athletic pop this year. I mean, he got blocked by Bogdan Bogdanovic twice yesterday. Like, when have we ever seen that before? So I know it's kind of counted out, and I still have this Heat fear in the back of my mind, but I really don't know if this Heat team is the same as ones in years past.
Yeah, I think the reason we should be ultra confident is the level of Tyrese Maxey right now, because in all the years everybody's plan was just throw everybody at Joel Embiid, and it was always is the next guy going to step up, and it was Ben Simmons, it was 47-year-old James Harden, it was always a guy that, and yet Harden gave us 2 games. Someone's going to be in the chat with that one. He gave you 2 games. He gave us 2 games. It's always, who's going to step up when he's being triple teamed. And it's not a big sample size with the Sixers with Embiid this year, but you just said 5-0 since he came back. That makes them 33-8 with Joel Embiid on the floor. And the only thing I can really go off of is the Heat game a couple of games ago when the second game Joel was back. Their plan was to attack him because he's just coming off of injury, and Maxey gave him 37 points. So I don't think anybody can slow down both of those guys when they're both clicking at this point. I really feel like Maxey is almost right there at superstar level. There's definitely games where he doesn't look like he's there yet, but I've seen a lot of games this season where he looks like he's at that level.
He's had a great year as well against Miami. I think 3 of the 4 games he's going above 30 points. So, he's had their number for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's not afraid of the moment is the biggest thing. That
that gives me confidence.
I think Romp's on a delay here.
Oh, yeah. My bad. I think there's like a huge lag going on.
It's all good. We'll wait for
I
you
gotta
to
fix
catch
my
up.
internet right quick.
All good.
All right, we'll let Romp refresh.
While we do that, shout out to Peter, man. Thank you. He says, hey, fellas, for some reason, I have a bad feeling about this game. Jimmy has a chip on his shoulder against us. We went 8-0 and couldn't climb out of the consolation round. Just a bad overall feeling. I don't think that's an unfair take. Like, I think in a 1-game scenario, it is going to be tough against Jimmy Butler and Eric Spoelstra. I don't think that's an unfair take.
Yeah, I mean, like in an ideal world, they're not playing the Heat right now for sure. That there's matchups I would prefer, but I still think they shouldn't be approaching this matchup scared. The Sixers should be looking at this as if we play our best basketball, this Miami team cannot touch us. And I do genuinely believe that to be true, that everything with this Sixers team is internally on how they play, how they're able to do it. And I do think that in a 1-game setting, I feel good that the intensity is going to be here in Philly. And DJ, you brought up that Miami game. That was a huge win for that Sixers team. And that's one that they should carry that into this, that we just beat this team at their place. We can do the same exact thing right here in Philadelphia. I do think Maxey's ready for the moment. I do think he's going to be a guy that shines when the lights are brightest. And by the way, as much as Eric Spoelstra is terrific, and I'm not going to downplay him, I'll take Nick Nurse going eye to eye, chest move for chest move with them. That's one of my biggest reasons for optimism with this team is Nick Nurse right here. And I think we're going to see that not just Wednesday, but throughout as many games as they do have left.
Yeah, we've seen Nurse and Spoelstra match up with both teams being undermanned, and then we saw both teams mostly healthy. I think they were still missing Tyler Hero at the time. Tomorrow, I think Rozier is still questionable. And somebody else
Love.
is questionable.
Kevin
Yeah.
Love.
Oh yeah, Kevin Love hurt his shoulder or something.
And Duncan Robinson as well.
Because Kevin Love, even at 35, still crushes us on the rebounds, man. He just never stops. He's so good at it, even with his athleticism declining. He just knows where to be, and his timing is perfect. And he gives us hell on the rebounds. So if you get to play with even without Kevin Love, that's an advantage for us.
Yeah, it looks like for the Heat, I was just looking at it. Rozier and Robinson are questionable. Love is day to day, but he'll probably be a go. Josh Richardson is out for the season. I mean, who cares about Josh Richardson?
I forgot he was there.
Yeah. For the Sixers, Joel should be a go. I mean, they're saying hopeful. I don't know what that means or why they would say that, but Joel will be on the floor. But Melton apparently had another setback, according to Nurse yesterday, and it's going to be very hard for him to suit up. So at this point, they should probably just shut him down. And Rocco is also out for the rest of the season. So when Nick Nurse said months ago that there was, quote, no light at the end of the tunnel for Robert Covington, he was not lying. I don't know what happened to Rocco, but he's done. And it's very unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. And for the Rocco stuff, it's still being labeled a bone bruise, which is kind of strange. But we did see this with Kendrick Nunn a couple years ago, where he had a bone bruise that left him out like months and months with the Lakers. So unfortunate. Apparently, he still can't move without pain or run without pain. And yeah, you kind of need to do that to play basketball. So unfortunate there. For Melton, I feel even worse for that. Number one, he's an incredibly useful player on the Sixers team that he's been the regular starting shooting guard for most of the past 2 seasons and played very well in those moments, turned himself into a very quick release 3-point shooter. Defensively, I think he's a perfect match for Nick Nurse's system. And I do think this Miami matchup is one where both those guys would have shined in Covington and Melton. So definitely unfortunate there. And also for Melton on the personal side of things, this guy that's 25 years old, an upcoming free agent, and this definitely cost him at the minimum quite a bit of money. So maybe the Sixers can get him back on like a team-friendly deal or something like that. I feel bad for him. They definitely would be way better if he's an available option, but you got to roll with who you do got. And I think we might get a Kyle Lowry revenge game out of as a consequence of this.
Hey, yeah, that last game too, Kyle Lowry played with some kind of chip on his shoulder. He looked like he was in a little bit of an extra gear against his former team.
Garden Butler.
That was in Miami too, right? Yeah,
Yep.
he was fired up, and I think he'll be fired up again. The Covington thing is crazy. All I remember hearing is he had knee swelling. And I always was like, did they ever say really what happened? So that that's that. Covington, his value in the league is really his length and his vertical, his side to side defense. So if he has a knee issue, his entire value is really gone. If he loses a step, he might not be valuable in the NBA anymore, so that's really unfortunate for him. Hopefully maybe he can just get it back next year and have a couple years left at that level. He was playing so good for us when he was healthy, man. And DeAnthony Melton, I think he's more of a plug and play type of player. When he's healthy, you can just put him on the floor with kind of any lineup and see what happens. But yeah, at this point in the playoffs, he plays a game and then he's out for 2 months and then he plays a game. Yeah, it's time for us to just, I think, accept that both of those guys are out.
Yeah, for sure. And to go back to what Sean said about Kyle Lowry, I actually think he could be an X factor in this game because, he was with the Heat last year. He knows what it takes to make that kind of run. Obviously won a championship and he knows that team inside and out. So I would actually have Lowry defending Jimmy for a good amount of the game tomorrow if he is able to withhold. Like, I feel like when I'm watching Kyle Lowry now, he's just kind of been preserving it for the playoffs, or at least that's what I hope, because some nights he's just out there running cardio. But when the lights, shine bright, can Kyle Lowry be a guy to step up? I think we have a lot of questionables, right? Like, can Buddy Hield hit a couple threes off the bench? We're at that point. Can Tobias Harris do something? Like, don't be a negative. Right? Yeah. Don't take touches away from Kelly and Maxey. If things get rough, could you put in Campaign for a couple minutes? What about Ricky Council? Like, there's a lot of maybes, and going into this game tomorrow, it's hard to have those maybes. Like, I would expect Nurse to probably tighten down the rotation and just, how many minutes do you guys think the starters are going to play? Like, they have to play most of the game, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And we know in playoff time that it is the rotations get shrunk down more. it is going to be interesting to see who's squeezed there and who's not. I know you just brought up Tobias, but now's the real talk time for Nick Nurse to make those tough decisions, to say, I'm putting out the best 5 that give this team a chance to win. And I don't know if Tobias fits that criteria in this matchup or really a lot of these matchups. So we'll see what that all comes. Nico Batum's a name that I wanted to throw out there. That's a guy that I would like to see on Jimmy Butler for an extended period of time. It'll be interesting to see how they mix up coverages. I do think Lowry fared pretty well during his opportunity, but Batum has that like combination of just IQ and like grown man strength in a way that I think is going to be necessary against Butler. We know how he likes to bully his way to the basket, get into the post, and do all those things. A guy like Oubre, who I love, I think he's just going to get straight up overpowered by Butler. So I think Batum's kind of my preference for a lot of these looks, but I do think it's the right call to mix things up. And you mentioned Lowry kind of like coasting a little bit. I think he's ending up in a far bigger role than was expected for either side, the Sixers or Lowry at this point, that this is kind of by default due to injuries, all of this. But I do think, to his credit, he's got a lot more left in the tank than I personally gave him credit. And I do think, like, now's the time. Like, this could very well be your last run in the NBA. Leave everything that you have on the floor. And I think he's ready to do that. By the way, leading the team in charges in just the short amount of time that he's been here.
Yeah, speaking of the player that does not have a career charge taken as a Philadelphia 76er in 5 entire seasons, Tobias Harris, he didn't play in the last game that we faced the Miami Heat. So they were without Tyler Hero. We were without our 6'9" assassin scorer who can guard 1 through 5. And so, you know, we get him back. I don't know. I just, for Tobias, I say it all the time, I just want 15 and 10. Just give me 15 and 10. I think he's accepted the fact now that Kelly Oubre is much more of an offensive creator, I guess, just a force driving to the rim and just really the third option. And I don't see Tobias trying to battle that. I don't see him trying to take the ball away. I see him just playing a role. I think he's been perfectly content probably the last couple of years. Like, hey, I got way overpaid. I'm just going to do my thing here. And so that's fine. If anytime you get to a point where you need Tobias Harris to deliver, you're out of, what did you do wrong to get there? But if it is what it is. But if he gives you 15 and 10, dude, just give me 15 and 10. Go 5 for 10 from the field or whatever. That's all I ask. Guard whoever in the paint. I think he plays solid defense against power forwards, some small forwards, not so much on the perimeter against faster guards. But I don't expect anything. When you start playing more physical teams is when he really starts to disappear. But again, the last time we played him, we didn't even have him. So maybe we're just at a point now where we don't actually need him for anything. So if he's there, he's there. If he's not, if he doesn't show up, it is what it is. Cut his check and move forward. I don't think he hurts the team much anymore, really, unless Nurse is still feeling like he has to put him back in the. That's the main thing I think still with me is the finishing lineup. If Tobias is 1 for 7 and getting burned on the perimeter, are you going to put him back out there in the finishing lineup? So there's that. And Lowry, you're right, man. Lowry, I think everybody wrote him off in a buyout market. They just thought he was washed. They just thought like, oh, you signed Kyle Lowry, he's pretty much done. I thought he was done, honestly, because he didn't play much for the Heat last season. He played what, half the season or something? He was out for a couple months. Mm-hmm. But he had some big games in the playoffs for him. But yeah, with us, man, he just fit perfectly into that facilitating point guard role. He doesn't have to be a scorer. His job is to get the ball to Maxey and Embiid, and it seems like it's working out so far. So that's definitely been a pleasant surprise.
Shout out to Rudy says, can Tobias do basketball? That is the real question. I mean, we have to hope tomorrow night. I agree with what Eastwood said. And like I said, I just hope he's not taking away too many touches because I do think the game will ride through Joel and Tyrese. And, especially in crunch time, like, can those guys get you buckets? Can Tobias stay out of the way? So, we'll have to wait and see.
Did Joel Embiid really say that out loud, that Kelly Oubre has been our third best player?
Yeah, on the on-court interview after the game.
And he's not lying. Yeah. He's not lying. I mean, if Kelly can give you, his 18-20 tomorrow night, I think the Sixers coast easy in this game. Like, I don't think it's even close at that point.
It's just weird to be in a situation where you want to tell the truth, but you don't want to take, backhanded take shots at a guy that you're friends with or something like that. So, I mean, but Joel's never really cared about that anyway. He's always kind of told the truth.
Yeah. And also, you got to try whatever. That they've done a whole lot of like uplifting Toby, trying to make him feel good. Maybe that is how you get him fired up. Of you're not doing your thing. Send a little shot. I don't know if that's how it's going to work or if it will for him, but why not try something?
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting. Romp, what's your thoughts on how this game, could go tomorrow? Like, what do you expect, and who's gonna step up? How about that? Like, who's the X factor of this game for each team?
I think just our 3-point shooting, because the Heat at some point are going to go zone, whether it's in the beginning of the game when we get on a hot streak, and it's like the last matchup. If you guys remember, we got off to a hot start, and then all of a sudden they go full court press, and we completely fumble the game away, and then all of a sudden it's a new game, and then in the second half it was the same thing. They're just missing wide open 3-pointers, and it's because the Miami Heat are in a zone defense and they're flustered. And so I think that's a key for me, just figuring out, can we not allow them to play zone defense? And what you got to do is not turn the ball over and also make 3-pointers against the zone. And then they got to go man. And then once you're man, you got Tyler Hero out there. You got potentially Duncan Robinson with a back injury. He might not play, who knows? So you want the Heat to go man to man, but if they're zone, they're not gonna, first off. But if you're cooking their zone, they got to go man to man. So that's a key for me. Just 3-point shooters, make your open threes. When you have a chance, you got to light it up, because trust me, the Miami Heat are going to be lighting it up from distance, every open shot, because that's what they do in key games.
Yeah, I felt like in that game they started to go zone. Joel was just coming back from the surgery, like we said, and it felt like they kept going zone because Maxey was just destroying them 1-on-1. Like there was nobody that could stop him. As soon as they went man, he went right to the rim again. He might have had 60 points if they would have stayed man that whole game. He had 37, and really they slowed him down every time they went zone. And in the fourth quarter, Joel looked gassed, and we couldn't hit a 3-point shot. And we were trying to get Joel in around the free throw line to break the zone, and that wasn't really working either. And then Nurse was even using KJ Martin in that role, floating around the free throw line to try to break the zone. So Nurse is it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch Spoelstra counter and then Nurse counter, because I don't feel like we've ever in this era we haven't been a part of that coaching matchup. We haven't had a coach that was on that level that could go head to head and just counter for counter and stuff. So, but yeah, the zone and the 3-point shooting, I agree with you, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, I that's the difference for me. Like, that's why I'm confident in the Sixers, because they finally have a coaching advantage rather than a deficit. It's not like, they're going to be up by 12 and then Doc Rivers is going to keep in an all bench lineup for 5 minutes and, it evaporates at the snap of a finger. But yeah, I think Nurse can lead this team to a win. I think he can coach this team to a win. I'm interested to see what Spoelstra does against Embiid. Does he come right out of the gate, just double teaming him every possession, and do that for the entire game? Does he just say, all right, we know we're undermanned, you guys are the better team, Tyrese, Kelly, Tobias, go beat us? I feel like that might be their strategy tomorrow or on Wednesday, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And honestly, another reason for optimism with the Sixers team this year is Joel Embiid is miles better as a passer this season than he's ever been before. That's like the biggest step that I think he's taken forward in that game. And we really saw that at the start of the season before he got hurt. And I was happy to see he kind of picked up right where he left off. Like that Magic game, he was slinging it around, picking out passes. That one like cross-court pass to Oubre was just straight up beautiful. And like, that's what it's going to take. And then especially when you do have guys like Buddy Hield, who is going to hit open threes, or other players to space the floor, I'm more optimistic of Joel being able to handle things, not go into hero ball mode, and really have lean on the other guys to beat them in a way that I don't think they've had the dudes to be able to step up like that in years past.
Also, I want to say I feel like we actually have a coach who can contain Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's probably going to get his. He's probably going to get like 30 points, is what it is. But it's more about like, how does that 30 points feel? Does it feel like he's unguardable, or does it feel like, okay, we're actually giving him a fight? And last matchup, man, Kyle Lowry, his defense on Jimmy Butler was some of the best Jimmy Butler defense I've seen from a Sixers player. He really knows his tendencies. He knows he's got to get out on his 3-point shot. And that's all you got to worry about, because he's not going to shoot it. He's just going to pump fake. He doesn't fall for his foul baiting tactics. And that's a key against Jimmy. His free throw shooting goes up in the playoffs. He's a low key foul baiter that doesn't have that narrative around him. So that you got to keep him off the foul line. And that's why I worry a guy like Kelly Oubre or a guy like Tobias Harris. You put him on Jimmy Butler, he's getting to the foul line like 8 times easily against those two. But Kyle Lowry's really smart and he avoids fouls. So I think he's going to see the matchup most, because he saw the matchup the most in the last matchup, and he did well.
Mr. Rudy Poo, the $5 super chat says, I do not trust Caleb Martin, fellas. If you know, you know, he cannot help himself. What do we think about Caleb Martin tomorrow night against the Sixers? Could he be an X factor for Miami?
I think part of what this comment means is Caleb Martin's the type of guy that scares both teams, that he can shoot you in or out of a game. I personally like Caleb Martin quite a bit. His athleticism is the real deal. He's been fun to watch since college, and he stepped up during that finals run last year. So he's a guy that, like, absolutely when playing his best will be a factor. That's another one of those just random Miami Heat players that they pull out of nowhere, and he ends up being a really reliable role player. But I do kind of agree with the sentiment here that he sometimes punches above his weight class as far as what his role is within an offense, and that very well could be the downfall of the Heat as well.
Yeah, he's that makes a couple shots, and then all of a sudden he's heat checking with 20 seconds on the shot clock, and you're like, hey man, keep chucking, man. We'll take that. We'll take that.
Yeah, I think another guy the Sixers should look out for is Tyler Hero. I think he's been back for like 6 games now. He's playing pretty good, but you know, they missed him last year at the end of the season. If the Sixers can contain Jimmy, or like Romp said, like not let him get those important points, I think the Sixers should be able to build a pretty good lead in this game. As long as Tyrese gets going early, I feel like sometimes, you know, he'll go for like 10 points early and then he'll go quiet, or he'll be really quiet. And then in the second quarter, or even late in the fourth quarter, it'll be like just feed Tyrese Maxey. So I think if the Sixers can get that final punch, you know, Embiid gets his and then Maxey contributes with that punch, I think that would be enough to blow this game away out of reach against Miami.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, Mr. Rudy Poo chiming in again, clearing up that he's saying Caleb Martin's got a little dirty player in him.
I thought he was saying that. I kind of thought that's
Okay.
what he was going for. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to throw this out there too. I think that was a big part of the calculus for not playing Joel Embiid yesterday, that there was no need to see him play against Nick Claxton. I don't know about the Caleb Martin, maybe. I'm not saying you're wrong on this by any means. He definitely had his moments. I think the Nick Claxton was a good reason, or a good driving force in the decision to sit yesterday for the Sixers.
Yeah, there was no reason for him to play that game. You just, no. You could get a fluky step on somebody's foot and then everything. No, yeah, I was fine with him sitting out. The Tyler Hero things, like I think people talk about the Tyler Hero as an offensive threat is something we need to look out for. But at the same time, he didn't play the last game we played them, and people aren't thinking about the fact that Nick Nurse will absolutely target Tyler Hero on the other side of the ball. And if you target Tyler Hero with Tyrese Maxey, you're going to take him out of the game, because he will get to the point where he's unplayable, and you'll put Spoelstra in that position where he has to choose. I don't know if Duncan's playing or not, but it's choose Duncan Robinson or Tyler Hero, because he gets to the point where he feels like he can't put both of them on the floor. Remember the playoffs a couple years ago where Duncan Robinson didn't get any run until Hero broke his hand. And so if Hero's out there, I just want them to I want that to be the number one, just target Tyler Hero and make them get him off the floor.
Yeah, I agree. It's all matchup based. Shout out to Nick with the $5 super chat. He says, just played pickup with a dude who shot like campaign with him and his jumper, cracked the rotation.
No way there's another guy on this planet Earth that shoots the ball like that.
Look, man, I've been very impressed with campaign. Like, he's a bucket getter, man. But does he crack a playoff series?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. He has to play. He has to play tomorrow, man. He's good for 2 3-pointers, at least 1 3-pointer. And he's not afraid to shoot it.
He's also getting put in the stanchion in the post by everyone on the Heat the next possession. That is defensively, like what we just said about Tyler Hero. I think that's even more maximized about campaign, that the Heat are just going to attack him completely. Now, granted, if they're going zone, you need another 3-point shooter. I don't hate it for a quick burst, but not a guy that I think the Sixers should be counting on for their playoff rotation.
How many minutes does like Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, how many minutes do these guys play tomorrow? Like, Nurse has that, reputation of let me go ahead and play the starters like almost the whole game. Like, if he's like calling Joel out, does Joel just like wave him off? Like, nah, I'm good. Keep me in, coach. Maybe give me like one breather for like 5 minutes for B-ball Paul, and then just stay in. I mean, Maxey could probably play the whole game if we're being honest.
He might.
Listen, knowing Nick Nurse, everybody's playing 40. Everybody's playing 40. He's giving it all to win this game. That's what Raptors fans said about him when we hired him. I'm pretty sure he had everybody. Joel's usage rate was the highest it's been in his career. Not the highest it's been in his career, but up there. But his minutes were high when he was healthy. I don't think Nurse ever thinks about that, really. He's like, we're winning this game. I don't even know if he counts the minutes that the players are out there. His assistants might have to tap him on the shoulder and be like, hey, you got to give this guy a 2-minute break out here. He's been running. You know what I mean? I don't really think he thinks about that at all. On the Cameron Payne thing, though, I think having guys like him is valuable because it's very flexible. Like, you don't have to play him, but when you get in situations where the Heat run zone and the players that you're trying to break the zone with aren't succeeding, you can put a guy like Cameron Payne in there just to see if he can make something happen. Say you're in the third quarter and everything's getting stagnant. You get a couple minutes of those Cameron Payne just random attacks to the rim, high off the glass, things like that. So I think he's a guy that can play and give you valuable minutes. I don't think he has to. I think you get in situations where he's valuable to have as an option.
Well, it will be interesting to see the rotation, to see who's out there. I think the Sixers need to not get behind in this game. I mean, obviously, it's a game of runs, but you don't want to give them too much cushion, right? Like, this is like a do or die type of moment. And the Sixers are the better team, so they need to, I guess, like, establish themselves and get in command early. I could see Joel having like one of those quarters where he drops like 15, 20 in the first quarter, but can you withstand the runs? I remember like the last matchup, it was just all back and forth. Like, the Sixers were up and then the Heat came back down 18. And then, the Sixers came back and then they were able to close them off. And I think that is the one difference with Joel Embiid back. This team can finish off everybody. They haven't lost. There have been games in the fourth quarter where without Joel Embiid, it's like, holy crap, here we go. We're probably not going to get this done. But with Joel, with that presence on both sides of the ball, especially on the defensive side, which goes under the radar, like a couple big plays late, and it's like the Sixers just take a hold of the game. And I hope that we get to see that tomorrow night.
Yeah, and by the way, when you talk about kind of the momentum of the game and tempo, that to me is like a huge plus for having Kyle Lowry. That, like, even if he's not 100% of what he is physically, there is such a trust between him and Nick Nurse, and just such a adult basketball feel for how to go about a game, whether that is taking your time dribbling up the court, whether that is making a quick outlet pass. It feels like he always has his finger on the pulse of the game. And I think like tomorrow or Wednesday night is going to be a night where that's going to be put on full display, because you're right, RB, that they absolutely need to control the tempo of the game. You have to kind of nip these kind of runs in the bud for when the Heat are going to throw at you. And you mentioned like a first quarter in which Joel has like a 15 or 20 point. I think that's unlikely. That I think it's going to be more one of those games where the Heat do everything possible not to let Joel beat you. And every time you make that entry pass in the post, they're going to be throwing 2 and 3 guys at him. That I think this is going to be a matchup where it's going to come down to guys making shots around him, and we'll see if they're equipped. I feel far better about that this year than I would do in years past, but I do think that the Heat are going to throw this blitzing, crazy defense all over the place.
Yeah,
I think I'm most worried about rebounding for this team, because Joel is a little sus right now in terms of, going up for rebounds, but I think he's just been taking that easy. In a do or die game, he should be going harder on the glass, but Kevin Love had like 16 rebounds the last matchup. That can't happen again. And in the second half, it seemed like the Sixers couldn't grab rebounds. They were getting stops, but they would just give it right back, and they would get second chance points. So if they can not turn the ball over and rebound, they're chilling, but easier said than done. And I think rebounding has been an issue with the Sixers for a very long time.
What do you guys think about KJ Martin? Because he played 21 minutes in that last game against the Heat, and I thought Nurse really used him defensively in different looks, and a lot on Jimmy Butler in the fourth quarter. I feel like I didn't rewatch it, but I could be wrong about that. But I feel like he had some big possessions, defensive possessions in the fourth quarter. And now he's been out for a couple games. I didn't hear like an injury or anything with KJ Martin. So I personally think he's incredibly valuable defensively. Nurse really knows how to use him for what his skill sets are, and not have him out there trying to do things he can't do. So I've enjoyed that. But I don't know. What do you guys think about KJ Martin?
Yeah, he's been a guy that like I've been pretty out on heading into the year and pretty low on throughout. He has opened my eyes a little bit, especially of late. And I think that Heat game specifically is probably one of his better matchups for the season. But I kind of think Ricky Council IV is like everything KJ Martin is and a little more. That there is just more to his game. I think defensively he brings a similar athleticism, work rate. I'm curious if Nurse trusts KJ Martin more. Obviously, Council now has the deal done, so he's officially eligible for postseason action. That's my preference, is to lean on RC4 a little bit. I just think he brings more on the offensive end from a lob threat, from a work rate standpoint. But it wouldn't surprise me if Nurse goes in Martin's direction. And he did look good in that Heat matchup specifically. So I don't think it's a bad call at all.
Yeah, I feel like you have just guys that you can just plug in at certain points. I don't know if they can get consistent minutes, but like, KJ and like Sean said, Ricky Council, like these are guys that can provide a spark. Now, Doc Rivers, that would never be in his head at all. Like I'm going with who I'm going with, and that's it. But maybe, Nurse is willing to experiment, and I wouldn't be opposed to it. But I think in this game tomorrow, he's going to really tighten up. Like, I don't even think Buddy Hield may crack the rotation tomorrow. Is that a crazy take?
Yes, that's a crazy take.
I think there's a chance there's a game where that happens. It's not going to be against Miami Heat. That like Buddy Hield's the solution to the zone. I feel that like you have to counter that with your best 3-point shooter. And like, to Buddy's credit, he is automatic when he gets open threes. Like he has really knocked him out, and he looked really good in that game yesterday. It was really nice to hit those 3 consecutive threes. So yeah, I think Buddy Hield, we see a decent bit tomorrow.
No, I think that's the thing about Nick Nurse. He's not afraid to pull the plug if it's not working. Hield only played 11 minutes in the last game. He was 0 for 6. So I think he's going to crack the rotation. But if he's bad, he's going to be out pretty quick.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. That's exactly what I was going to say. He's going to come in, and Buddy's looking unconfident, because there was like a version 2 weeks ago where Buddy was extremely unconfident, and if that happens, he's yanking him right away. But he should at least get a try.
I don't think I have a bad feeling about if you guys really expect Nick Nurse to use Ricky Council, because they signed him, and then a meaningless game against the Brooklyn Nets, he got basically no run until the game was over, which I thought was kind of crazy. I think there's something that we're not seeing that Nick Nurse doesn't quite like right now. It might be defensive communication. It might be things like that. His athleticism is definitely there. He's definitely valuable in the offensive end and just going to the rim and making things happen. But I definitely do think Nick Nurse trusts KJ Martin defensively a lot more than he does Ricky Council right now.
Yeah,
I wouldn't expect to see Ricky Council at all.
Yeah, I don't either. I think it's the decision-making factor of Ricky Council right now. He kind of has like that Kelly Oubre mindset where he's just driving, and he made that pass against the Spurs, and that was like a rare thing for him to do. I think that's why Nick Nurse doesn't trust him, because sometimes you just, drive into the rim and he'll get foul calls, but when he doesn't, it's like, uh-oh. But also, I just think it's decision-making, and I don't think defensively he's not as trustable as KJ Martin, because KJ Martin, he's a veteran and he's stable and he knows where to be. Ricky's kind of like he could be in the wrong spot, kind of like a Paul Reed type, I guess you could say.
It's weird that like they come from such different paths. I believe they're the same exact age, KJ Martin and Ricky Council the fourth. That Ricky did 3 years at college. KJ took like the alternate route, that he took one of those prep years, tried to go right into the NBA. So they've had very drastically different like pathways to this point, and it's obviously prepared them quite different. That you can see the version of Ricky Council IV who's ready to be the guy when he gets the opportunity, take on, be that primary offense as he was at Arkansas and Wichita State. And then you see KJ Martin, who's just very comfortable playing within his role. But like the thing about Ricky Council IV that's like interesting to me is we've seen like that Spurs game's a perfect example of Nurse didn't play him the entire first 3 quarters of that game. Threw him in for the fourth quarter. He closed that game and then played both overtime periods. And they don't win that game without him. He had that and one finish, that crazy pass. Like that's kind of another positive in the Nick Nurse category of he's going to stick with what works. He's going to try things in a certain matchup that he sees fit. And both these guys fit the category of like energy guys that I think can absolutely swing a game and really a playoff series. Like we saw Daniel House like swing a game for the Sixers team last year. And I think both these guys have like way more adequate basketball skills than Dan House.
Danny House, lost two draft picks for that guy.
Nobody signed him either.
Danny, what's his nickname? The tampering. That should have been it when he was announced in the pre-games. I like your comparison. Romp, I liked your comparison of RC4 and Kelly Oubre. Maybe that's it with Nick Nurse. Maybe he feels like that you can't have two of those guys on the floor at the same time, because that's just like a fullback. You know what I mean? In on a basketball court, he just attacks. There's not really much thought that goes into it. So yeah, maybe he feels like he can't play them both. I feel like I've seen lineups, though. Maybe in that Spurs game, maybe not, with both of those guys on the floor. And both of those guys on the floor together is absolute havoc on the offensive side. They're just attacking relentlessly. But yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe you can't have two Kelly Oubres at the same time.
Yeah, the Daniel House reminds me that we don't have PJ Tucker anymore either. So like that's a game changer within itself, because you're not playing 4-on-5 basketball. So the offense, that's the biggest concern for me heading into the playoffs, is the offense, because in years past our offense has fallen off a cliff. Our defense has kind of been always been there with Joel Embiid. So it's just like, can our offense finally convert to the playoffs? And with the way we run our offense, there's actual movement, there's cutters, there's shooters everywhere, capable shooters. Even if Kelly Oubre is a 32% shooter, you trust him in a clutch moment. That's the thing about Kelly Oubre. This man hits clutch shots. OKC game, we don't win without Kelly Oubre. He had a clutch fourth quarter. Miami Heat game, we were down by like 6 points. He hit a 3-pointer to get the lead back. I'm telling you, bro, Kelly Oubre, hopefully his clutchness transfers to the playoffs, because the Sixers have been missing that clutch gene from a complimentary player. Same with Nick Batum. He usually always hits big open 3-pointers. Same with Kyle Lowry. That's kind of like a different aspect of why you should believe in the Sixers. Who knows? They could come out tomorrow or Wednesday and, be the same old Sixers, but it does feel like our complimentary players kind of have the big boy balls per se and hit big shots.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I'm just still a bit skeptical about Tobias, and I don't know if it comes, from Nurse or the higher ups where they won't let Nurse pull the plug per se, but everybody is just speaking this confidence in the air, and Tobias could be a dead spot in the entire flow of the game. And will Nurse be able to, or will he pull the plug on Tobias? Like, if he was to do that, I feel very confident with this team. I feel more confident in Ricky Council than I do in Tobias Harris.
Yeah,
that is crazy,
absolutely.
but it is true. But I just don't see Nurse doing something like that in a playing game.
But my take there has always been like think about the end goal of the season is to get the best version of Tobias Harris for this stretch, right? So like benching him earlier on, you're just kind of messing with his head for a guy that's been here. Now is the time where it's judgment time, where there's no excuses. That like now is where I'll actually be critical of Nick Nurse if he's giving Tobias Harris 40 minutes for no reason in this matchup. So like I can overlook it. And to be honest, like when he played his worst basketball probably ever for this stretch of the season, it was at a time where there was no Joel Embiid, no DeAnthony Melton, a ton of other injuries on roster, that it wasn't the time to demote him because there wasn't a clear alternative better. Now this is every choice matters. And like now's where we can really be critical of Nick Nurse if he's not. So I hear you. I'm not saying I'm guaranteeing that he will, but I do think like there's a greater chance now than there has been all season or ever in his Sixers kind of career.
I think actually the game where I saw him do this was against the Celtics at one point in this season, where Tobias was just getting absolutely bullied and pushed out of the lane and tiptoeing and fading away and it just not affected, just hurting the team. And he only played 27 minutes in that game. It was only 4 minutes into the game when he pulled him. I just reminded myself, because it's one of my biggest viewed clips on Instagram of me yelling about him pulling Tobias Harris 4 minutes into the game. 4 minutes into the game, he put Ricky Council in the game in the first quarter because he was not happy with what he was seeing from Tobias Harris, but he did put him in the finishing lineup. That's again the main thing. If he's hurting the team, does he come back in the finishing lineup because he's the highest paid player on the team? That's where that's where Nurse gets in a situation where it's like, who are you listening to other people, or is it do you run the show? And I would think with being a championship winning coach, and he had meetings with these owners and stuff, I don't think he agreed to take orders from people. I think he agreed to get this team to the next level. And I think he's going to do what he feels like needs to be done.
I would hope so. One point that Romp made earlier that I thought was good was the rebounding. And this is where I do get concerned. Like, I feel somebody else plugged into Tobias's spot could provide more in that aspect. And, it feels like almost every game, mostly before Joel, came back, like the Sixers were getting horsed on rebounds and, it's been a lot better, but I still wish they had more coming from the four. And Tobias just doesn't always give you that. So I just hope they don't get in a position tomorrow where Miami's getting second chance points after second chance points, more opportunities, because that puts a lot of pressure on you in a one game play-in. But that's just my take on it.
I think Tobias gets beat on the boards because he's a step slow, I think. I see him a lot try to rebound, and he just gets beat. The other guy on the team that doesn't box out at all is Kelly Oubre. I've seen this so many times. The guy just does not have box out in his repertoire. He ball watches, and then he tries to beat people by out jumping them. He's that kind of player. He's not a fundamental player at all. He's just a go-getter. Maybe him and Tobias together on the floor, not boxing out, is not great for us in crunch time.
Yeah. To Oubre's credit there, like when he does that, at least it's like he'll go up and get a ball that's up there, just like a leap and athletic rebound. We never see that from Tobias. And it's, I think with Tobias in general, it feels like his processing of the game is just like a tad slower than everyone else out there. That it feels like the game moves at a little quicker pace than he's up to speed sometimes. That, like, I remember there was one play where he just like, this was a Celtics matchup where his closeout was just like obnoxiously fast. And it was just like a quick sidestep and blow by. That kind of stuff just can't happen. I wish there was like a clearer solution to the rebounding battle on this team, that there was that like power forward. I know Nick Nurse has experimented a little bit with the B-ball Paul and Joel Embiid lineups. I don't expect him to roll out that in this matchup or probably throughout the playoffs. Batum's probably going to have to be a guy that steps up. And I'll throw it at Kyle Lowry once again, that he is a guy that's constantly in the mix, that he is boxing out, throwing his body, and like that very much is going to come into play. It wouldn't surprise me if we see like a 6 or 7 rebound game out of Kyle Lowry tomorrow.
You know who led the Sixers in rebounding versus the Heat in the last matchup? I'm pretty sure it was Tyrese Maxey with 8 rebounds, and Joel had like 4 or something, something crazy.
I
think he had 9. He had 11 assists and 9 rebounds. I think he was 1 away
9 rebounds.
He was 1 away from a triple double.
There was one game where Campaign had the most rebounds.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, Campaign did it one game, which is crazy.
That just says about our total rebounding when Cameron Payne's leading you in rebounding.
Oh yeah, we're not a good rebounding team, but shout out Tyrese Maxey for his defense. We put him on Mikal Bridges yesterday, and we were like, cool. Like, that's a huge step from last year where he was kind of getting picked on defensively. Like, that's huge to put him on Mikal Bridges. And I feel like he holds his own on that end just fine this year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Davon said Nurse sometimes waits too long to make adjustments. Well, tomorrow every decision is going to be overanalyzed. That's just how it kind of goes, especially in this type of game. I guess we could kind of get more into like I'm not going to give a final prediction because, I'm going to wait till tomorrow, but like just our feeling on the game. Like, how confident are you that the Sixers get this win? I see a bunch of people in the chat. They want us to be like 110%, we're winning tomorrow. We're winning the chip. I'm trying not to get too overconfident because that's how we get hurt. That's how we feel pain. Like last year, I'm confident the Sixers are closing out Boston with 5 minutes to go, and we end up in another upset. Do I think the Sixers are the better team? Yeah. Am I going to pick them to win this game? Yeah. They should get this W. I believe Nurse, Joel, Tyrese, like it's going to be too much for Miami. But where are you guys at? I guess like percentage-wise, confidence-wise, like 60, 40, 70, 30, 80, 20, 100. How confident are you in the Sixers getting this dub on Wednesday night?
Definitely higher than your vibes, RB. That I think you're looking a little more scared than I like you to be here. I'm going 90% here. That I'm in on the Sixers team.
Dang.
I'm feeling good right now. I really do feel like everyone's going to come in focused. I do think the stars have aligned in a way where they haven't in past years. I think Embiid is close enough to 100% to really have a dominant performance. And I mean that more, to be honest, on the defensive side of things than anything. That I think he's going to change the game on that side for this Heat team, be a true rim protector, really snuff out a ton of that offense. And I do believe that the guys around this team are ready to step up. The Oubres, the Lowrys, you go down the list. Tyrese Maxey, we know he's built for the moment. I think that this team takes this personal. They're going to be locked in from start to finish. And I think the Sixers end up in the Heat aren't going to go away. They're going to compete. But I think this ends up in a pretty convincing victory for the Philadelphia 76ers.
I'm going 75% confidence. I'm 100% confident they're going to make the playoffs. Like if they lose,
Yeah,
we're easily going to beat Chicago and Atlanta, in my opinion. So either way, they're going to make the playoffs. And I think Boston. I want Boston more than New York. I'm scared of Jalen Brunson. That's a hot take, but
yeah.
I think Boston's team is a fraud, and I think Nick Nurse, the way he coaches them defensively, could give Boston a bunch of issues, and we would be super underdogs. And the Sixers and Philadelphia are at their best when they're underdogs.
I think mine's going to be a little bit of a hot take. I'm right around where Sean is. I'm going 95%.
Wow.
And the 5% is just the basketball side of it. If you have a game where the ball doesn't go in the hoop, and you have a game where every weird loose ball rolls right to them, and you have a game where, I don't know, they get touch fouls and we get full contacted the other end, and you have a game where they shoot 70% from three for absolutely no reason, then yeah, that's that 5% for me. The 95 is that the Sixers have two stone cold killers on the offensive side of the ball, and the Miami Heat cannot stop them. Like I said, they had one chance. They had a chance a couple of games ago. Their strategy backfired because Tyrese Maxey dropped a 37-point triple-double in their face. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Which one are you going to stop? You know, there's three players this season that have 350-point games: Devin Booker, Tyrese Maxey, and Joel Embiid. They can absolutely go off. I think Tyrese is at that level, and I think it's just too much for Miami to stop at the end of the day. And I would love a 7-game series so you wouldn't have that 5% of maybe the basketball gods hate us one night. But I'm very confident.
I like it. I'm going 75. I'm going with Romp. So we got two against two here. Yeah, I hope you're right. I just think the 1-game scenario is tricky. And I agree with Romp, though. Like, even if the Sixers do lose, they're definitely getting in the playoffs. If they were to ever like lose to Atlanta or something, or Chicago, that would be utterly disappointing. But I don't agree with Romp about the Celtics take. I would rather play the Knicks, even though I do think, it's going to be a physical series. I don't think anybody, and I guess we can like kind of branch this conversation. Like, if the Sixers, or when the Sixers get past this, like, how do we feel about them in the playoffs overall? Because I don't think there's anybody that can stop Joel Embiid. Any philosophy, any coach, I just think he's on a different plane. He's on a different level. Will his supporting cast step up? It's a very fair question. And we are asking a lot of guys like Tyrese Maxey and minimum Kelly Oubre, but they have risen to the occasion. How far can this team go? I think this Sixers team can be a dark horse in these playoffs. And who knows, man, if they get past this, like, add that fuel to the fire, let them go. Let them be underdogs. I'm glad we're a 7 seed. I'm glad we're not a 2 seed, but that's just how I feel.
Yeah, I think this is the year we get past that second round barrier. That I do think that the stars have aligned. I wanted the Bucks. I wanted the Bucks as the first round matchup. I really did. That I would be even more confident at this point. But when you talk about the Knicks matchup, the Knicks are good. They play hard. They're gritty. It's going to be a grueling series, not going to be a pushover whatsoever. But I just think that there's not enough ways for that team to generate offense, that every offensive possession looks so difficult for them at times. And Jalen Brunson's terrific. He absolutely scares me. He's one of the best players in the NBA, and I think has elevated himself to a top 10 there. But like, when you look beyond him, I know I said this to you guys, but like, Joel Embiid's still going to be the best player on the floor, and the gap between Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Maxey is much smaller than the gap between Tyrese Maxey and whoever the Knicks' best player is. That I do think like Maxey's in kind of that conversation, and I think the Sixers just have more ways to win than this Knicks team do. They're just going to have to absolutely shut things down to a defensive matchup. And then at the light of the end of that tunnel of that matchup is either the Bucks or Pacers, which I'm not sure who's going to win that series, but I think the Sixers can take either of that team. So Romp, I'm with you that the Sixers are better when they're underdogs, but I would much rather be underdogs in the conference finals against the Celtics team when there's a little momentum behind them and all these things. But I feel pretty good about the Sixers against each of those matchups I just named until we get to Boston.
The reason I'm scared of Brunson is because, like, did you guys see what he did to the Miami Heat in the playoffs last year with RJ Barrett shooting 15% from three, Julius Randle averaging like 7 points, zero spacing. This dude's putting up 29 points against the Miami Heat Eric Spoelstra defense. He had Eric Spoelstra at the press conference perplexed. He was like, I don't know what to do. Eric Spoelstra. And he's gotten better this year. I don't think people realize, but Jalen Brunson's been a top 5 player in the NBA this year. And the Sixers, what's an issue? Point of attack defense. Jalen Brunson would fry us. At least with the Celtics, you can kind of get in their heads and their questionable decision makers in terms of passing. Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Derek White's going to, beat Kobe Bryant. But then you got Porzingis as well. You put him at the 5, he's going to get in foul trouble. And that's a whole nother thing. Like Porzingis, he's not a good rebounder. They're not a good rebounding team, the Celtics. I just feel like last year we took the Celtics to 7 games, and that team was extremely flawed. We had George Niang playing big minutes. We had PJ Tucker. I'm telling you, Celtics are overrated, and the Sixers match up better. And remember, Marcus Smart was cooking us in the first 3 games. Marcus Smart felt like the second best player on the Celtics. And the thing is, in the playoffs, they're going to miss Marcus Smart because Drew Holiday, questionable playoff performer as well. I'm telling you, Celtics are frauds.
Romp, why'd you have to bring that up, man? I have nightmares at night, and two ghosts come out of my closet, and it's George Niang and PJ Tucker playing power forward and center in the fourth quarter. Dude, that was the fact that we didn't get swept is unbelievable. I wouldn't say I'm more scared of the Knicks. I think Brunson can go off for 50, but they're going to need Josh Hart and DiVincenzo to also do something. They're going to need, who am I missing? They're going to need points from somebody else. They're going to need OG to have a big offensive game. They're going to need more than just Brunson at the end of the day. I think they're deep a lot of times. A lot of times all those guys go off and they score 130 or 140, but a lot of times they don't. I just think they would have to have a lot more contribution from everybody else, even if Brunson does fry us. But you're not wrong, I don't think. Brunson gets to the point where he's completely unguardable. I do agree with you on the Boston Celtics, though. And I think I've been saying this all season. I'm not scared of them. And it's just the vibes that I get from them. I just get such a diva type of vibe. I just get such a, like, they act like they have 5 rings. They act like they deserve something. They complain to the officials the entire game. And I know people are like, you're a Joel Embiid fan. How could you say that? But I just get this, like, you owe us something vibe from the Boston Celtics. I don't feel like they have hunger. I don't feel like they have a chip on their shoulder. I think they feel like a little bit higher than everyone, and it comes back to bite them. That's why they end up playing down to competition. By the way, that's not a real thing, playing down to competition. That's just you weren't prepared because you thought you had an easy win ahead of you. And maybe that's what that means. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think it's when all these teams are healthy, it's going to come down to coaching, and it's Nick Nurse versus Doc Rivers, and Doc Rivers 2.0, Joe Mazzulla. I have no fear in the world because these guys have the biggest loser energy as coaches I've ever seen. This dude, Mazzulla, sits up in front of the media and is just waiting to defend his honor. He does not answer questions honestly. He fires back at the media. He reminds me so much of Doc Rivers, and it feels so defensive. It feels so insecure. I don't think he has any idea what he's doing. He got thrown in there when what's-his-name got fired for, whatever he was doing. I think
Udoka.
Yeah. I think Mazzulla is way in over his head, and I think eventually the Celtics are going to accept that fact. When it comes down to it, I think it comes down to coaching, and I don't think either of those coaches have winning attitudes.
Interesting takes, man. I think another good question is if Miami falls into number 8, could they give Boston a run for their money in round 1? Like, could they make it tough? Imagine if Miami jumps out to like a 1 or 2-0 lead against Boston and, they've had their number. Definitely something to keep your eye out for. But I don't know. I just think I agree about the Joe Mazzulla stuff. And let's be honest, the Celtics have the most pressure here. I mean, if they don't make the finals, if they don't make a run and win one, like, we have to really question Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Was it worth it paying those guys, right? But, like, they always close us out. They always hit the final punch. The Sixers should have won that series last year. And it just came down to late game execution, and the Sixers didn't get it done. Which is why I think they need to take it one game at a time. Literally, like it's one game or nothing right now, and they need to focus on the Miami Heat. So I hope they can get it done. Other than the Sixers, who else do you guys think could be like a scary team in the playoffs? Because I really don't know right now. I mean, the Thunder won the West. The Bucks are frauds. We know that, right? I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucks go out in round one.
Well, they gave Doc an excuse on a silver platter now that Giannis got hurt. So
I think the Magic are the worst team I've seen in a long time in the playoffs.
They were almost a second seed.
Yeah,
they are
bad too.
The Cavs are imploding. The Pacers don't really play that much defense. Like, if there is a year to take the advantage and the opportunity, like this is the year, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of wild, like going in, thinking about how the bracket aligned, and obviously there was a whole lot of ducking and loser energy from these teams at the end of the year, the Bucks and Cavs headlining that effort there. But if I'm ranking like my most dangerous teams in the East, Celtics 1, Sixers 2, Heat 3, and Knicks 4 for me. And obviously the pathway for the Sixers is not ideal considering that on kind of my outlook there. And maybe I'm discrediting the Knicks a little bit. You can make the argument I would throw them over the Heat, and kind of I think it's somewhere in that range there, but everything's up for grabs at the point. And with the Sixers team especially, it's all about how they play. It's all individualized and internalized into them of if they bring their best effort on a game-by-game basis, which if we're being honest, has not happened all the time, they can dominate each of these teams. They can win each of these series, but it's on them to have that consistency, to be playing up to their standard, to bringing the effort on a game-by-game basis. I think they're very much capable. It's just a question if they can bring it on every night.
Romp, you got something? I was gonna wait for Romp because I got something.
Yeah, I think the Knicks are the best team in the East, in my opinion. Even though they don't got the firepower offensively outside of Brunson, I think they're just a well orchestrated team. It's kind of like Denver, where everyone knows their role. Like Jokic and Murray are just such a well-oiled machine, and Brunson running that offense. DiVincenzo, I mean, he's one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. My question about the Knicks is, what Josh Hart are you going to get? Because if you get the bad version of Josh Hart, he's just like Ben Simmons, where he can tank the offense. But if you get the good version of Josh Hart, I feel like they're a good offensive team. And they're another reason I'm scared of the Knicks is because I could see Joel getting banged up in that series, because they're kind of like the Raptors. They're kind of like the Heat. They're like a physical team where Joel usually gets hurt against. They're going to be like the Nets too, where it's just going to be a grueling physical series. So I think the Knicks and then Boston. And then other than that, I think the Sixers are right up there.
Yeah, are we ranking Eastern Conference teams right now? Is that what we're doing?
I was just posing the question of like, which team do you think could be like, I don't know, maybe a dark horse or like elevate in the playoffs? Like, obviously, I think the Sixers are one of those teams, but who else do you think could be that team? Because there is a lot of uncertainty right now, just in both conferences.
Yeah, I don't think the Sixers should even be labeled a dark horse because of their record with Joel Embiid. You know what I mean? People are looking at their overall season, and most, the down parts were without him. That's just what it is. I think that this Sixers team healthy is going to the NBA Finals. I don't see any of these teams taking us in a 7-game series. I just don't. I think the issues that we had, and a lot of people constantly compare it. I think people that don't watch it intently or have gotten away from watching it because they're sick of this team losing in the second round, they just keep saying things like, "I'll believe it when I see it," or "Let me know when they get out of the second round," or whatever. I can't compare it to years past, because I really think that a lot of the issues that they had no longer exist. I think they had a coaching issue. I think they had some players that were in major roles that were not equipped to step up. We knew that. We just had to wait for it to happen. There was 3 years where I lied a little bit on YouTube for my audience, because realistically I was like, there's no way this team's doing anything with this guy on the roster. You know what I mean? Like, that was at the back of my mind. I don't feel that way anymore. I feel like they've built the best team around Joel Embiid that I've seen in this era. They have a championship winning coach. Tyrese Maxey's at an all-star level. And really, the team last year was built for James Harden. People don't talk about that enough.
Yeah.
When Daryl Morey got his wish and got his obsession, his man crush, the guy that he has the guy that he had a personalized painting made of that's in the entrance to his house, which is the weirdest thing I've ever heard. He signed, Daniel House Jr. and PJ Tucker and all those guys for James Harden. And so we watched that in the playoffs. And now Harden broke up with him and he was able to, he took a couple of months to get over it. And then he started to think clearly. And then he built a team without a specific player in mind outside of Joel Embiid. And I think that's what we got now. He definitely had a James Harden obsession that kind of affected the roster construction last year. And I don't think that's the case anymore either.
I agree 100% about that last point, but something I will contest you on there is like, you're right. The team was built for James Harden, and there were certain guys brought in and picks were lost because of certain guys. But the fact of the matter is we had the series won against Boston, just like we've had the series won against, Atlanta. And obviously the Heat series, Joel was banged up at first, but the Sixers still had the opportunity. Like, they need to close it out. And, that game 6 was disappointing, but even the way they came out in game 7 was like, you didn't put any effort out there. You got blasted off the rip and you just let it go. And I think that was the most frustrating thing because, there have been many culprits of blame over the years, but to just flat out go out and, sad, miserable like that was just, it was a bad look. So I agree with you. I think the roster is way better constructed this year. I think Nurse is a huge plus, but if the game is there, or say a series is there to be taken, they got to take it, man, for once. Tired of these game 7 losses.
Them losing that game 6 is the best thing that could have ever happened to us because we would still be in the same situation.
That is true.
I was so happy they lost. I couldn't say it, but I was so happy they lost. I wanted them to lose so bad. I wanted Doc Rivers out of there so bad.
I agree with that, but I think the Sixers would have beat Miami, and I think they would have been in the finals. Maybe not have won because the Nuggets were on this insane run, and they were just so perfect fitting with each other. But I think the Sixers would have been in the NBA Finals if they won.
The game was running way too much through James Harden. And yeah, he gave you 2 games in that series, but he was the worst player on the floor for 4 out of 7 games. And when Joel burned out, I'm not saying Joel didn't collapse either. People do that too. What about Joel? Yeah, he collapsed in 6, didn't show up in 7. But, he's the number 1. And when number 1 gets triple teamed or taken off his game or starts, playing like a little bit of a fraud, who's going to step up? And Harden burned out too, and there just wasn't enough there. I feel like they have so many more options right now.
And that's the issue with James Harden too, is even on teams that he's not the best player on, he still makes or break how that plays team because he's such the engine of the offense, so ball dominant in the way that he plays, such a primary decision maker. And we're seeing it with the Clippers right now that like when James Harden was running and gunning and playing his best during the midway point of the season, that team looked unstoppable. But now the wheels have fallen off. He's slowed down. His body is caught up to him once again. And now they look like they very well might lose in the first round to the Dallas Mavericks. In fact, I think it's pretty likely that that is the case, in my opinion there. So, like, there's no longer this live and die with one guy the way that the Sixers were with James Harden. And that's even with Joel Embiid being here. That I think there's, like, something refreshing about, like, all the different variations that are ran when it's Tyrese Maxey is the number 2, where you can play him off ball. You can have him run off pin downs. You can have him as a catch and shoot guy. He can attack downhill and away. And there's other guys to bring in on the actions. When it was just Harden and Embiid, you lived and died with every single one of those shots, and they got the good moments too, but that's purely deciding things, and it feels like that there's just more ways the Sixers can succeed this year.
Yeah, the 2-man game of Harden and Embiid was some of the most predictable 2-man game of all time. Like, everything had to be perfect. The spacing had to be perfect, even though the Sixers don't have floor spacers. With Maxey doesn't even care if he doesn't have the ball, first off. Plus, you can run a dribble handoff whenever you want. If the first initial play goes wrong, you just fall back. Oh, Joel and Maxey, 2-man game. And I think Embiid has kind of adapted into Maxey's style, where Maxey's a very unselfish player, and that results in a more team-oriented game. And I have a hot take. I think low key, my biggest concern is like, is Embiid that guy? Does he have that extra gear in the playoffs to take you and, take a series? That's my biggest concern about this team because I feel like the veteran role players, the role players we have, they'll ride along. But if Embiid, shows up and he's lackadaisical, he's committing careless turnovers, like it's just the careless turnovers kill me with him. I think he's capable, but I also sense that he's capable of, just not showing up one game, and that could be a dagger for them. That's my biggest concern with this team. Is Joel that guy? Like, I think we're at that point where we can start being like, yo, Joel, it's time.
That's what I was going to respond with. Like, a question that comes up in my mind then is like, is this the final chance? Like, what if the Sixers have a clunker again? Like, do we look at Joel? Do we say, you didn't come through? Or, do we look at the rest of the supporting cast? I mean, the team's only going to have 3 guys on the roster at the end of the season. Like, do we start to look at Joel more and more if they don't make it past the series? Because there's a lot of people that do look at him. I don't really blame him for the playoff losses in the past. But is this the opportunity? Like, you have it on the table, you don't get it done. Like, what's the bar that we're setting? Because we came into the season not even knowing what the team was going to look like. But then they played so damn well, and they have a coach that has won a championship. So, like, where are we setting the bar? I think that's a fair question.
Yeah, I mean, obviously how things play out and like the direct context of how they get eliminated is going to play into how we process this. Like, it's one thing if they go down to the Boston Celtics in 7 games and are just up short. And it's another thing if, they lose to the Heat in the first round, barely squeak by, and then get cleaned by the Celtics in 4 games. Definitely changes the story here. But as far as like, you definitely have one more year around Joel, at least in my opinion, because this essentially is a tryout for everyone else on the team. That this is seeing who here fits as a long-term piece of the puzzle. You just mentioned it, RB, that like this is a clean slate roster at the end of the year. This is more pressure, not in the long term, obviously, but for this specific season on the Kelly Oubre's of the world of earn that contract. Why should you be here long term? Buddy Hield, Maxi's going to get his bag, no doubt about it. And it's looking at the other guys that can maximize them. So we talked a lot about this being a potential gap year. It's turned into more than this, that this team has a legitimate chance this year. And I think, frankly, like a far better chance than a lot of people are still even giving it a chance to. But I think like, even if it is a flame out this year, it's just retool around Joel one more time. Hopefully he stays healthy and then we fight the battle again next year. But I'm still optimistic that things can change in this specific season.
Yeah, I think the Joel Embiid, is he the guy thing isn't always fair. I think that nobody's the guy. Like, when you think about it, what one guy took a team all the way? Like, Jordan had some of the best rosters ever constructed. Steph Curry had some of the best rosters ever constructed. Maybe Kawhi Leonard 2019, but that roster was crazy. Everybody needs a team. I think Joel also isn't really in a position. It's a really one-dimensional position. I think he's the most skilled center I've ever seen, but he's still a center. And if you triple team him in the post because he doesn't have the guys doing what they need to do on the perimeter, what can he do? He's going to get called for a charge trying to force his way through 3 people. Shaq had Kobe. Joel needs Maxey. Joel needs, and I'm not saying he hasn't looked at times like he gave up, because he has looked like that, but you start to see the frustration because he gets to the point where I can't do anything with this triple team because I'm just getting, turning the ball over or getting called for a charge because kick it out. I got guys shooting 10% from 3. I just think it's not totally fair to expect one guy to deliver it, but I understand where people come from because of the energy that he puts off sometimes when he gets in that and when he starts to get frustrated and they start to lose. But the whole team just needs to be at the top of their game. I guess that's what I'm getting at.
And sorry to interrupt one more time, but everyone's a loser until they're not. That we said the same thing about Giannis until he won a championship. The same thing was said about Jokic until last year when he won a championship. That label sticks to every player until they break it. So like with Joel, sure, he has it right now, but everything changes if he goes on a tear, he plays his best ball, and this team goes deep in the playoffs and has legit chance at a championship. So I hear it, I understand it, but like everyone has carried that weight or a point or another, and it just takes the success to break it.
From what I remember
Yeah.
in that Bucks championship series, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like the beginning of that series, Giannis was getting stonewalled. Were they not down 2-0 in that final series?
Yeah, they were.
And as soon as Budenholzer went more to Drew Holiday pick and rolls and getting Giannis moving and under the rim, and Drew was delivering the ball to him,
Yeah,
that changed everything. So even Giannis couldn't do it himself because they figured out his weakness, and he was just getting stonewalled at the rim. So, everybody
Middleton played
needs
great that
to
series.
do their thing.
Yeah.
Shout out to
I think
Nick. Oh, go ahead, Romp. Go ahead.
I think Maxey is definitely his best second option he's had throughout his career because people are going to say Jimmy Butler, but Jimmy Butler was not the same player until he got to the Heat. Like he wasn't the killer he is now. Like I think there was a chance he could have become that on the Sixers, but the Sixers were using him totally wrong. There's a whole Ben Simmons versus Jimmy Butler, thing going on. He was great in that Toronto series, but he only averaged like 20 points. And then James Harden, besides those 2 games, I mean, the year before that, he was terrible in the playoffs. Besides those 2 games, he was averaging like 15 points inefficiently. So Maxey's probably, I would assume, is going to give you like 25 points a game. Plus, I mean, Jimmy and Embiid really didn't have a crazy 2-man game. Like Jimmy's not a pick and roll player. He doesn't even really have that great of a 2-man game with Bam Adebayo. And the thing is, Maxey and Embiid, they have a 2-man game, just like Jamal Murray and Jokic, and that's a big difference. So I think the reason I brought Joel up is if he comes to play, and it's not even about putting up crazy massive numbers. It's not about him taking over. Like I kind of want him to play in a team-oriented style of play, set more screens, focus on rebounding a little more, focus on defense and things like that. And the great moments of Joel Embiid, crazy shots like he had against the Raptors a couple years back before he got elbowed, that's going to naturally come out. But the Sixers are well equipped where if they get a good Embiid, hence why their record is ridiculous with him, they're going to be winning most of their games. And you can't say that in the past. So that's why I'm like really hyper focused on if Embiid shows up, great things could happen. But I'm also a little scared he's going to show up in one game. He's going to look like he's 50% because he's injured or he's out of shape or whatever. He's gassed. The conditioning is a question mark. You know what I'm saying? Because there's been at times when he's gotten back recently, he doesn't even get back on defense. And that's cool right now in the regular season. But when you're not getting back on defense in the playoffs, it becomes a concern. So it's not even about the scoring or anything like that. It's more about the conditioning. Can he hold up for a whole series? The same thing we worry about pretty much every year with him. But yeah,
I think Embiid got a much needed break. To be honest with you, I think maybe Joel Embiid can't play a whole season and then still have something left for the playoffs. Maybe that was a blessing in disguise. I know people think that because he had that surgery and sat out that long, he would be out of shape. But he's said before he doesn't do anything in the offseason. He literally like rehabs and hangs out. He doesn't even really work in the offseason because he's recovering from the season before. And that's why at the start to every season, it takes him 5-6 games to look like he has the energy to play. So I think we're right there. I think we're right there at the same point of him taking 5-6 games to get up to game speed. And I think he's ready to go.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, adding on to that, and shout out to D Green who just dropped the member comment. Like, I guess my hot take is not that Embiid won't show up. Like, I'm confident he will. I believe in the brand of basketball that the Sixers play now, and kind of like Romp said, like it doesn't only have to be Embiid in a playoff game, but I'm still a little bit worried about him staying 100% healthy. There's a lot of wear and tear, and even the other night, I felt like my heart dropped to my stomach when Joel goes walking off into the locker room. And it's like, he just got an amazing rest. And maybe this is what he finally needed to get hurt earlier in the season and come back right before the playoffs. Like this team is so dominant, but it's just the way he plays. You can't take the Joel Embiid out of Joel, but sometimes it comes with a lot of liability, and one wrong twist or turn or, whether it's a freak accident, it's scary based on the history. I feel like the guy has some of the worst luck, and I hope that we finally get to see one healthy playoff run of Joel Embiid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the $1 million question. A lot of that, like, I even feel bad for Joel on a lot of this. That like he can't control getting hit in the face, or he can't control a lot of these. That I think people are overly harsh on him, and a lot of like the fitness criticism and stuff like that. And granted, it's not ideal sometimes, but it's also like him being a little bit out of shape right now. Like, what do you want him to do? He tore his meniscus, or was under the knife and was off for 2 months recovering from surgery. It's like he's doing his best to an extent here. He's working with the conditions, and there's also like inherent basketball issues with building around a center in today's NBA. So he's combating this from both sides, from his body letting him down at times, and then from trying to adapt his game to be effective in the modern NBA. So this is like the odds stacked against him to an extent, but he's still a guy with such superior talent and at his peak, such a level that really no one else in the NBA can reach, that you got to deal with it, and you got to find players that can maximize this. So it is put up or shut up time to an extent, but I also think people are just in general a little bit harsher on Embiid than sometimes he deserves.
I think a lot of his criticisms is people not realizing that he's just a giant person, you know? Like you see his body language, or what looks like his body language. They think he has negative body language. They think he's lazy, and he's big and slow. He's a giant. They're not fast people. You know, I don't think he's ever really going to look like he's in great shape. I just think he's 7'2", 280 pounds. Yeah. He was 245 in college. You know, if he could get down back to around that, that'd be nice. But I guess, you know, that's out the window. But, you know, and he got hurt then anyway. So what can you do? You got hurt at 245.
Yeah, I'm excited to see, like, because I feel like a lot of Sixers fans' opinions, even my opinions, like, are like shaped on the past of the Sixers. Like, it's hard for me to fully buy in on them, you know, beating the Heat and then beating the Knicks, even though they're probably a better team on paper. They got the best player, and that's just because of the past. But I'm excited to see like Nick Nurse's offense, because it's just so much different than Doc Rivers. I don't know if you guys watched that Bucks Magic game, but man, oh man, it was just pick and roll, Dame, ISO ball. Bucks had no rhythm offensively. It was disturbing. And going from that to Nick Nurse and how the Sixers are run as a team, it's just much different. I think it will result in better results in the playoffs, and I'm excited to see. But it's still so hard to buy in. Like RB, I could tell RB feeling this because of the past.
No, you gotta buy. You gotta buy in, man. You gotta buy in.
I'm buying in. I'm buying in.
Watching a game scared that Joel Embiid's getting injured is like being in a boxing match scared to get punched in the face, or being a tightrope walker and scared to fall. If it happens, you're dead. If it doesn't happen, you made it across. But you think you being scared of that isn't going to change anything about it. Actually, it might make it happen more. Not that we control the outcome, but I just try not to think about it at all. I just try to, you know, if it happens, I'll be like, there it is. It happened, but I'm not going to be scared that it's going to happen.
And Joel, sometimes more than he should, plays like he's not worried about it whatsoever, for sure.
Yeah. And I think this, like, the whole fan base is just, you know, if we finally get over the hump, it's the best feeling ever. And if we result in the same result, then it's another heartbreak. So it's tough, man.
Yeah. Dre, we're gonna need a super chat for a response, just so you know, buddy. You've typed your heart out this entire show. Drop that super chat if you want us to read that comment, bro.
There's some crazy comments in here, and you know, so like I said, there's a lot of people crying in the comments, but at the end of the day, I mean, you know, everything comes down to Wednesday night, and hopefully they advance and they don't make us sweat anymore. So hopefully they can get it done. I am confident that they will, but I am still a bit worried. We'll read some questions out. If you guys have questions, throw them in the chat. But let's just go around and give like any final thoughts on the game Wednesday night. And then let's do one hot take. It doesn't have to be Sixer related, just in general in the NBA for the playoffs. So
no questions from Dre, though. He has to super chat. Everyone else can ask questions.
All right, who wants to go first? Hot take for the NBA in general. It can be Sixers, doesn't have to be. And then
I'll go first.
Final thoughts on Wednesday's matchup.
Hot take, I think the Mavericks win the championship.
Wow.
Luka Doncic is the rightful MVP. They're trying to take it away from him because they're obsessed with Jokic, and Jokic is a hell of a player. But man, oh man, this media is, I don't know what it is, man. What happened to voters fatigue? Giannis got blackballed out of here from MVP combos, but Jokic, man, he could have like the most dull season for his standards, and he's MVP. But I digress. Mavs win the championship, and then Kyle Lowry's gonna come up huge. Clutch moment, clutch game, revenge game, Miami. I think Kyle Lowry is gonna be a huge part of the victory on Wednesday.
I like it. I'm rolling with. I think Wednesday could turn into a double-digit victory for the Sixers team. It's going to be my take there, my prediction there. I think they end up pulling away towards the end, and it becomes it. And as far as my larger hot take there, I think we see at least 3 upsets in the first round across the NBA. I even more than 3. That looking at some of these matchups, I think the Suns beat the Timberwolves. I think if it's Lakers Nuggets, the Lakers have a chance to take down Lakers Thunder. I'm sorry. I think the Lakers have a chance to take the Thunder there. I think the Bucks and the Pacers are a live dog there. There's a lot of these matchups. Sixers Knicks, once again, I'll take that. So I think we're going to be in for an upset heavy playoffs overall.
All right, I will say, so my final thoughts for Wednesday, I think Tyrese Maxey's going to have a game, like one of those games. He always comes in hot to start the playoffs. I think he's going to drop 30 plus and help lead the Sixers to victory. So keep your eyes on Maxey. In terms of my hot takes, I'll do a 2-part hot take, and it pertains to the West. I'm not as crazy as Romp, but what I will say is that I think the West gets represented by like a 5 seed or lower. I think a 5 seed or lower goes all the way in the West. And my other hot take, shout out to the Harden Stan boys, I think the Clippers lose in 6 games in the first round. I think they're done. And
the
they're
Romp's Dallas Mavericks.
Woo.
Yes,
Yep.
Romp's Mavericks.
Well, Kawhi has a knee thing right now.
Yeah.
He always does
Again.
for the rest of his life. They told him.
I mean, if he misses another playoff series with a knee thing, he just has to. It's over.
Dude, they told him you will have a knee injury for the rest of your career, pretty much.
It's a bummer, too, because he was hooping this year, too. He was playing incredible basketball before being shut down for this. But the Clippers go as he goes. So if he's not in it, they're not going anywhere.
What, you mean Harden's not dropping 45 every night, leading them to the promised land? Hot take. I got a hot take. The Oklahoma City Thunder. Let's see. The Lakers end up the 8th seed somehow. They lose to the Pelicans, and then they beat does Golden State get upset in the play-in tournament? Anyway, I wanted this hot take. I don't know if it's realistic now that I look at it, but the Lakers are upsetting somebody because they're going to outshoot them on the free throw line by 9,000% to get LeBron James out. The Oklahoma City Thunder get upset in the first round. That's my hot take in the Western Conference, I think. I think Denver, just a well-oiled machine, championship ready, healthy. I think Denver's in the finals again, and I think it's against the Philadelphia 76ers. That's what I really think. I have to go with if everybody stays healthy. You know what I mean? I don't see any of these. Obviously the Boston Celtics, if it might happen in the second round. That's the biggest challenge we have. Outside of that, they should be in the finals if they stay healthy. I really think that. And who wins? Damn.
He's trying to make himself buy in. He's like, how can I say Philly? How can I say Philly?
If we're there, we're riding high. If they get all the way to the finals, we're talking ourselves into it. They're playing beautiful basketball.
I'll talk myself into it. But if I had to, if you said put all your money on one team, I would say Denver in 7.
I'm gonna raise you on a hot take there. I think if the Sixers had Aaron Gordon, they win the championship.
I agree with that.
He's a perfect piece for that team. Perfect.
Oh, we still have Tobias.
That kind of
no, Tobias is MPJ. We've been over this. Kelly Oubre is Aaron Gordon. Tobias is MPJ. Dude, don't overrate MPJ. He's like averages like 13 a game, 14.
Yeah,
15.
but he hits
very
he hits like every clutch 3. And He's way better than Tobias, in my opinion.
He's just not paid like Tobias, but he's Tobias. Better shooter than Tobias, but not by much when you look at the numbers.
All right, let's read out some of these questions and then we'll hop out. Drop your final score predictions, I guess, in the chat. We'll read some out. Brandon says we had a ISO heavy offense in the playoffs last year. More cutting and movement this season. I like our chances. I would agree with that. Shout out to 7-4U. He says, hot take, trade Embiid. Said it already. I'll keep saying it. But when we're at the point of being thankful he got injured so he could rest, that says a lot.
Starting up early. Not even a playoff exit before these are flying out.
Did he watch like the whole season?
Yeah. Yeah, the trade Embiid people, how was it watching the stretch without him? Because that was some of the most unpleasant basketball I've ever seen.
They weren't watching. They were tuned into Eagles podcasts all year. They were ready for baseball season. They don't watch ball. They stopped watching the Sixers 3 years ago. It's obvious at this point.
Hot take, Mo Bamba never sees the floor again in the NBA. That's
I think if Paul Reed struggles, he might see 5 minutes.
Yeah,
I cannot see any Mo Bamba minutes. Please, I'd rather go small ball.
Played pretty well yesterday, to his credit, Mo Bamba.
Yeah, against the Nets, who are the worst franchise in sports.
He's gotten better, RB. You got to give him credit. He used to be like G League, but he's like bottom tier, 16th man off the bench now. That's improvement.
We thought that because he had 30 points in the first half against Philly.
Do you know who Mo Bamba was really good against? Trendon Watford. That's who Mo Bamba was really good against the other day. Trendon Watford was shooting 1 foot floaters, and Mo Bamba was swatting them out of the air.
What happened was Daryl Morey re-signed Montrezl Harrell, and that was the plan to keep him. And then he went back to the film last year when Bamba dropped 30 against us in the first half, and he said, "I'll sign Mo Bamba on a 1-year contract." And yeah, no, thank you. J Abs, $5 super chat says everybody's glazing Jokic so badly it's insane. Like, bro, let's be honest. Luka's the real MVP this year. Besides Embiid, the league is glazing hard.
It's crazy. It's insane.
Yeah, I think the Mavericks were so bad defensively, like most of the season. That's really what affected it. Their team record. They that's why they don't talk about Luka having that. But at the trade deadline, the Daniel Gafford thing, man, that's just. That guy, nobody talks about Daniel Gafford. I wanted him, man. Anytime we played the Wizards, it was always like, why is Daniel Gafford giving Embiid problems? But he never gets talked about.
True.
He didn't exist, though, according to Morey. There were no centers available at the trade deadline. Brandon, final super chat. We already read that comment. Thank you, Brandon. And then Reese says, healthy Embiid versus the Celtics in the first round. He wants the Celtics round 1.
Dude, we were playing with Mo Bamba against the Celtics, and we were sticking with them. You remember that game? I remember that game. Ricky Council went off too. I'm telling you, bro. Give me the Celtics.
You mean that game in the
lose, but we're going 7 at least. I can promise you that.
What if the Celtics get upset in round 1 by Miami? They'll never be able to live that down. That
means more to me than the Sixers winning. I'm going to be real. I need the Celtics to lose. I hate them so much. I hate Derek White's bald head. I hate looking at Porzingis. Oh, that dude's face is disturbing. I hate
that Derek White kills us, but I do love me some Derek White, man. He is just a baller.
He's a dude that, like, the tables have turned for me, though, that, like, he's now gassed up so much that I'm like, all right, everybody pump the brakes. Now he's getting overhyped. Like, he is phenomenal, but now it's like the whole Derek White should be an all-star and all that stuff. It's like, all right, everybody relax with all that.
Well, he got insulted again because Holiday got the big contract. That was supposed to be Derek White, So
that's true.
Here he comes again. He's going to have to prove it again.
Drew Holiday also isn't good, and his defense has dropped off. People won't admit it, but his defense has dropped off. Fluff the Celtics.
Well, Holiday's what, like 32 now? How old is Holiday?
I think he's 34.
34. He's got a 4-year contract, so.
Yeah, NBA GMs don't ever take age into account until it's obvious that they have to try to trade the last 3 years of the contract.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shout out PJ Tucker.
Um, I think the dream scenario, and talk about writing a story, would be for the Sixers to beat the Knicks, get to the 7th seed, beat the Knicks, and go up against Doc Rivers in the second round. That would be poetic in itself. The Sixers beat Doc to get over the second round hurdle, and they get to the conference finals. That's what I'm rooting for. But if it doesn't happen that way, I want the Bucks to get swept in the first round. Doc Rivers.
I don't want Doc to have an excuse. I need healthy Giannis. I don't want Doc to have an excuse. I need him to have to make one up like he always does, because that's the funniest excuses, because they're not real, and they're obviously not real, like blaming the equipment manager or something. And so that's what I need. Yeah.
The Bucks had a losing record, right? With Doc Rivers, they were like 19-21 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's 17-19. I'm pretty sure. They were 30-17 when Adrian Griffin took over, and they didn't win 50 games. That's like hard to do.
And
that's embarrassing.
What do they do if the Bucks get beat in the first round? You can't fire Doc Rivers.
Well, he's laid the groundwork of excuses of like the culture is not here from start to finish with all the equipment staff, all this stuff. I need another year to turn things around.
He's obviously a master salesman. He obviously talks his way out of everything. And you could imagine a meeting with owners. He's going to explain that exactly. Yeah. And they're going to be like, 100%. All right, yeah. We'll bring you back next year.
You know what's crazy that I heard yesterday? If say the Bucks did fire Doc Rivers, right, and they get a new coach, they would be paying 4 coaches next year. They're still paying Budenholzer. They're paying Adrian Griffin. They'd be paying Doc Rivers and whatever coach they bring in. So I don't know if a team has ever paid 4 coaches at the same time, but that'd be wild.
Listen, we've seen owners make decisions. We've seen it in the Sixers during the tank. You know, the rumors that Mikal Bridges was traded by Josh Harris and his friends. Just rumors, but my point is, there's owners of sports teams that do things and have no clue what they're doing.
Oh yeah,
and if how did they hire Doc Rivers? It's unbelievable to me. But here we are.
Did you guys see Damian Lillard? How he looked against Orlando? That dude was in a box. He was 2 of 14.
Yeah,
it was crazy, bro. He could not move, and then like going from Maxey cooking Orlando, and then Damian Lillard the next day, was like, oh my goodness.
Is he washed, or is it not the right fit on that team?
Washed. I think he's washed. I've said this.
Imagine if we would have traded for him and got rid of Maxey like 2 years ago.
We were talking about trading for Kyle Lowry not that long ago, man. Like, thank goodness none of that happened. Like this championship window is shut if either of those happened.
I mean, to me though, like Dame wasn't terrible last year. Like, he had a pretty good run. He's just been like stacking up injuries, right? Like, how did he get this bad then?
I think maybe Dame was so good on a team that nobody cared about. Maybe, you know.
I hear you. I just think like Dame still had that ability to be Dame, and it's like he just doesn't have it. Like, is that the Doc Rivers effect? What is it? What is it? Like they got rid of the glue piece.
There's an energy too, you know. Yeah. There's a vibe, you know. He was the king. He was the king of Portland, you know. Now he's like practicing next to a cornfield in Milwaukee, dude.
Shout out Doc Rivers. Shout out Doc Rivers for starting Pat Bev and benching Malik Beasley, and Malik Beasley's having like a career year from 3, and he's benching Malik Beasley. That's crazy to me.
At this point,
crazy.
Oh man,
RB, do they have a bet on BetUS like odds of Doc playing all the oldest players? You know, like he just continues to. It's so predictable.
I think the Bucks are going down in round 1. I'm very.
Oh yeah, I agree.
I'm very confident, and I think Doc is gonna make excuses.
Pat Bev's gonna have to play 40 minutes. That's their only defender against Halliburton.
Yeah,
Malik Beasley was their point of attack defender, which is, I mean, I got to shout out Malik Beasley. He tried. That's not his thing, but he gave effort. But outside of that, they have no point of attack defenders, and their whole roster is old.
They got rid of the glue piece. I mean, they got rid of the guy in Drew Holiday, and then he ends up in Boston and gets a 4-year extension. I mean, it's crazy. It is wild to see where they've come. Like, you know, Giannis was injured in the playoffs last year, and then they get rid of Mike Budenholzer. Then they end up with Griffin, and they don't agree with his philosophy. The guy you hired 20 games ago, 30 games ago, so you just can him. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. It really
Doc Rivers was traded in 2011 by Danny Ainge because they wanted more of an analytical philosophy, and he disagreed, and they traded him for a first-round pick. That's real. And people are
great
still
deal.
hiring this guy.
It's a bargain of a deal to get a first rounder for that man, too.
Yeah, and then he went to where? Orlando, and collapsed that team for 2 years and got fired. Unbelievable.
The fact that he was a consultant, though, before he got hired, like, it's just very weird to me. Yeah, that's what it was. You're on TV now. How are you consulting for a team while you're broadcasting with Doris Burke? I don't get it.
Dude, Doc Rivers was a good broadcaster, by the way. Like, I kind of enjoyed him as a broadcaster.
Wow.
That was short-lived.
Yeah, I really did.
I
thought he knew much more about the game as a broadcaster than he did as a coach.
I just wanted nothing more than to hear him call a Clippers versus Sixers game this year. He took the job before that ended up happening, but hearing him talk about James Harden, talk about Joel Embiid, that would have been electric television.
Yeah,
my issue is that he deflects responsibility every time he talks about Joel Embiid. Like, it's always, oh, well, Joel this or James that. It's never like I did anything wrong. And it's very shocking. Like, he finally said something for the first time, like, last week, but that's after all the pressure got to him. After he blamed the training crew and the equipment, and he said, we're not good enough when we go on the road, and we're not clean enough, or whatever he said. Like, it's wild to me that he is making those type of excuses.
I think it's hard for players to buy into a coach that, I mean, you know what I mean? How can he really be hard to players when they can look right back at him and say, what have you really done? You know?
Right.
Outside of one magical year full of Hall of Famers.
Yeah, we've seen the collapses as well. We've gone up against the collapses here. Like, when you talk about like credit for being around a team or being around the NBA for so long, it works in the opposite direction too. When teams like continue to watch you fail or come up small in situations, like there is a pattern here, and it blows my mind that like the Bucks think a different result. You can stick a fork in that team for this playoff run, no doubt about it.
I can't wait for it, man.
Dude, I want to say real quick, Drew Holiday's just defense and facilitating is much more valuable than Damian Lillard's 30 shots a game. So that trade to me is just terrible.
Yeah. And by the way, that was the complaint about Griffin, was their defense being so bad. It's like, yeah, you think you guys are surprised that you traded Drew Holiday for Damian Lillard and your defense got worse? Like, how is that not common sense going in?
Yeah, I just didn't understand, because like I've never seen a coach can that quickly on a disagreement of a philosophy. Like, you hired him, you knew what he wanted to bring to the table. So how are you going to fire him that quickly, especially a rookie?
Yeah,
I don't get it, man. Brandon, $2 super chat says Tingus Pingus. J Abs says if only Tobias was playing like his Clippers self. And then J Abs says, I'm not going to lie, Doc's first year with us in 2021 was nice. He was a real good for us that year. Only that, in my opinion, was our best squad, and we were the number 1 seed. I disagree. Yeah, no, he let that off the hook, and I think that was one of the downfalls. He didn't hold them responsible enough. But that's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Nick Nurse would have, I don't know. For Ben Simmons, getting drafted to the Sixers, who had been losing for a million years, was the worst thing that could happen for his career, because he came into a situation where he got treated like a celebrity, and he was already treated like a celebrity his whole life. He had no motivation to work or get better. If he would have got drafted by a winning franchise with expectations, they would have been like, what are you doing? You know, you're not playing. You're sitting on the end of the bench. And he would have been the number 1 draft pick, not playing until he changed his game. And yeah, that was, I mean, it's his fault too, but the situation kept feeding his ego, and downward spiral began.
Yeah, and when he went to Brooklyn, he had expectations too. It wasn't like here's an opportunity to just make your money and kick back, like they had expectations, and look at where they're at now. I mean, the Nets can't even hold close with the Sixers without Joel Embiid. It's like,
the guy bought a $20 million house without a basketball court. He doesn't like basketball, dude. But every basketball player's dream is to buy a mansion and have your own basketball court.
Yeah.
He doesn't like basketball. Who wants to wake up in a mansion with no basketball court? That's insane to me.
His video game room, though.
There was
his
5
video game room
pools.
decked out. Yeah.
It's crazy. I think in 2021 too, I think the Sixers would have made the finals that year too. I don't know if they would have won, but if I remember correctly, the Bucks were kind of banged up in that series against Atlanta. So, I mean, it kind of could have gone either way. But anyway, that is where we are at. Sixers Heat Wednesday night, because the chat has corrected us about 12 times. 7 p.m. Eastern. The West is on tomorrow night, and then the
Shout out
East
the Flyers.
I have one more hot take.
Flyers.
I have one more hot take.
Close us off with a hot take.
Jimmy Butler's been overrated his whole career. Jimmy Butler is a very high-level glue guy.
Ooh.
Jimmy Butler's not a leader that's going to lead someone to a championship. I know he drugged the Miami Heat through the trenches last year, but when it came down to it, he had to deliver and he couldn't deliver. And he's just not. I don't think he's that type of player. I think he's a Draymond Green on a championship team.
Wow.
Wow.
And I also don't think him and Joel Embiid was as great of a pairing as everybody thinks it was, because he's not a good 3-point shooter. He's not a good floor spacer. I think that could have been a much better team if they would have moved forward with them, because they could have put better pieces around, like not Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris and other non-floor spacers. But really, like that Raptors series, dude, Brett Brown ended up running the game through JJ Redick because nobody could spread the floor. And that turned into 2 costly turnovers because it's JJ Redick. And then that was it. It wasn't even the Kawhi shot. It was 2 back-to-back turnovers by JJ Redick. The whole thing made no sense to me, but I wasn't that high on. I like Jimmy Butler for the dog that he is, but I don't think he's a superstar. I don't think he's a number 1 on a championship team.
And the other
Jimmy Butler is a player whose like highs are way more focused than his lows. Like people forget he got outscored by Bryn Forbes in a playoff series a couple of years back. And also like last year he was amazing against the Bucks. But like the Knicks series, Kyle Lowry was so important for them. And then against the Celtics, Caleb Martin turned into Kobe Bryant. He averaged like 21 points a game. Like Jimmy Butler obviously is that guy, but he also has a personality where with what he does in the regular season, aka he doesn't give a flying fluff about the regular season, that only works with the Miami Heat. That doesn't fly anywhere else. He got traded from Minnesota because of that. It didn't work with the Sixers because he had beef with Brett Brown and Ben Simmons. The Heat are like perfect for Jimmy Butler because they can handle stuff like that. Why? Because they got the Heat culture or whatever. Hopefully they wear their Heat culture jersey, by the way. They have a bad record with that jersey, but yeah, that's my point.
They don't have enough stars on the team. Jimmy Butler needs stars around him. They don't have enough stars on the team.
That's my point, though. And that's why I disagree with you guys, because he still has brought them to the finals twice. Like, give him some more help and watch what he does. I think you guys.
Yeah, but he needs the ball. He wants to be that guy. Like on the Miami Heat, he is that guy. But you get another guy like Joel, then there's going to be like a little ego battle, kind of like how we experienced with Harden and Embiid for a bit, and kind of throughout their whole career. That's why Harden wanted to get traded. Jimmy Butler wants to be the guy, but with another person who needs to be fed, it doesn't really work. That's why he works in Miami.
I don't know. I think Jimmy, Joel, and maybe Tyrese, I think those 3 would have a championship by now. I do.
I agree with that. Yeah. I was
agree
saying
with that too.
Yeah.
Think
I
back
was saying they would have built a better roster around him.
You guys talked about 21 or the Raptors series. I mean, in 19, I think the issue with that is, you had Tobias Harris who needed the ball. Ben Simmons wouldn't shoot a jump shot. There were too many guys that needed the rock. Like Jimmy and Joel were that perfect balance. And I don't feel that Jimmy ever got enough opportunities to finish off, the moment.
That's the point that I think gets lost in the Jimmy Butler conversation a lot, is the version of Jimmy Butler that we currently see and have seen these past couple years is not the version that was here in Philadelphia that we saw. That when you think back to that point, he just forced a trade out of Chicago. He just went to Minnesota, got into a huge fight with Karl Anthony Towns, forced his way out of here, came to Philadelphia, and then was beefing with Ben Simmons the whole time. So it's like the dude had like legitimate red flags, and then it was like, all right, the Heat will take him as this reclamation project, and obviously it's worked out terrific for him. But like he was much more known as like a head case than he was for his basketball ability at that point. Obviously, he was still very skilled in showing that, but it's not like he was a model citizen by any means leading up to it.
No, I think he's just brutally honest, but I do think he was right the whole time.
Yeah,
And
about every one of those
Yeah.
guys, by the way.
Exactly. And you know what he did? He demanded greatness. Like he wanted the team to be great, and I think the Sixers needed that. I think Minnesota needed that.
but
They were a bit immature.
RB, he also takes the whole regular season off.
True.
That doesn't
He was
work
only here half
anywhere
the season.
besides Miami. Yeah, and he refused to shoot threes for like a whole month randomly. Remember that? It was
That's
so
true.
weird. He just like stopped shooting 3-pointers.
I
He's got an
was-
ego, and the Sixers organization, they can't handle that because they're not built like that.
No,
Trash
yeah.
organization.
He ran into the ultimate ego, and that is Josh Harris. Because you could give your life to this team, and you're getting a 3-foot statue. All right,
I
that's
mean-
what you're getting. Josh Harris ain't dealing with it.
I'll never forget the story where Jimmy said they all sat in a film room and Brett Brown didn't say a word to the team. And he said, "What's going on here? Like, why are we not talking about like how we can improve?" And I think he was just kind of checked out at that point.
You know what I love about that beef with Ben Simmons? I predicted when he goes to Brooklyn with Kyrie Irving, it's going to take about 2 weeks. And I swear to God, the first month they were playing, you heard Kyrie scream, "Shoot it" on the court live in a basketball game. That was just so fun for me because it didn't happen with the Sixers for 5 years, and all it took was Kyrie Irving.
Yeah. Ben's career is over. I mean, there's no coming back. Literally, he's done. J Abs $2 super chat says, "What Jimmy needs is Embiid, and Embiid needs Jimmy." I agree. I think that pairing is a championship pairing right there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
but
I think we need to get over it. This is
Okay. I'm over it.
It was so far ago. This is now like an old head topic. Like if I show up, I showed up to pick my kid up from school, and sometimes there's some older dudes there, trying to talk ball, and I don't even join the conversation because I don't want to. But I hear the one guy go, "Oh, they should have never traded Jim." I'm like, "Oh, here we go, dude. When are we gonna stop this?"
I agree.
By the way,
If they went
our
if
boy
they went down the
J-Ab's still repping
pathway,
Embiid and Simmons in the avatar there too in the first.
if they went down the pathway they went down, like Doc Rivers was not going to work with Jimmy Butler. Now, if you tell me Nick Nurse can bring out the best in Jimmy Butler. But Jimmy was literally arguing with Eric Spoelstra a couple years back, and they were like got in each other's faces.
Tried to fight
I'm telling
him.
you, Doc Rivers with Jimmy, oh my, that would have been
Yeah,
that would have been a mess. He would have requested a trade mid-season, most likely.
I think
Jimmy was undrafted, right? Second round, maybe?
Second round pick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he always had a chip on his shoulder. It's always been his personality. Never takes shit from nobody, and it works for him, and sometimes it doesn't work for him.
I think he ended up in the best place for him with the best coach organization. But I will say, and I did throw this up on Instagram yesterday, like if the Sixers win, I need a Tobias Harris moment where he walks in the locker room and he throws a shot at Jimmy. I need it.
No. We don't need that.
It'd be the coolest thing you ever did.
Did you? How many So RB posted that tweet on Instagram. It has like 40,000 likes. It went like absolutely crazy.
It's got like 800K views in like 20 hours.
Wow.
And even SportsCenter tried to like they took it without taking it. Like they took the tweet off, but they put the same like concept into a post. And
bro, it's ESPN. You could pull 5K out of that. You could easily.
Right.
You throw me a little 5K and you can have my tweet.
Yeah, now that everybody's talking about that, Tobias Harris over me. So if Tobias was to ever pull some petty stuff like that and respond to that, I mean,
but I'm not I'm not slandering you by any means by saying this, but why did that go so crazy? Because that is the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Oh yeah, it was a joke. I mean,
I thought it was. I was like, there's no way he's being serious.
It was a joke, but I mean, I don't know. There are still a lot of people, even on Instagram, that comment like on that post. I put a fake April Fool's signing post for Tobias. People are still commenting on it, saying this would be an amazing contract, and this is a discount. Like people still believe in Tobias Harris, and
they don't watch ball.
Yeah, so I think it's a lot of those people that are like, yeah, like I want to see Tobias do this, and like he would get his get back on Jimmy, but I don't have any expectation for Tobias.
Well, people don't. I'm not saying anyone should. By the way, this is a sickness that we have. Like we're watching what's happening in the middle of the third quarter with perimeter defense and switching and like we're watching shit like that. Most people aren't. They're looking at the stats and they're saying he gave you 17 and 5. What's the problem? So
Yeah.
I get where they're coming from. They're not watching it like we are, and I'm not saying they should. I'm just saying we're in two different viewpoints.
Yeah, no, for sure. Phoenix says if they traded for Lowry in 21 for Maxey, do you think they would beat Phoenix in the finals? I don't know. I still think they would have collapsed. It's just who they were DNA wise. Shout out to all the super chats, man. These are pouring in here. J Ab says if we legit build up through 16, 17, 18 and never trade anyone and rush the process, we would have had a chip by now. I don't know. I don't know, man.
Nah, you weren't ever getting a chip with Ben Simmons.
I got another hot take. Best GM the Sixers ever had was Brian Colangelo.
Oh no, I
Yeah.
can't roll with that.
He had Ben Simmons playing Magic Johnson ball.
He also
fucking
was
smacked him
actively,
up.
yeah, he's also actively tweeting medical records of Joel Embiid and
That was his wife.
Okafor. Oh, you think? Do you
He said
actually
it was
think
his
that?
wife.
Yeah, yeah.
It was his wife.
His
It
wife
sounds
took
like
the
something
hit.
a wife would do.
His wife took the hit. It's like Otani's translator taking the hit and for federal crimes. You know, like it's crazy. Like
His wife just needed a hobby. She wanted to be part of everything, and so she tried to join in. She had no idea what she was talking about. That's what happened. Makes perfect sense to me.
his wife doesn't know who Jahlil Okafor is.
His wife, or
All right,
his
there were
wife-
some details in there that okay, maybe yeah.
Yeah, it's like some reporter asked Julie Okafor why the trade didn't go through. Ask him if he failed his physical to this place. It's like there's like one person in the world who knows this.
Yeah, it's true. I did enjoy that end of that one season where they had shooters around Ben Simmons and he was just running and dishing, and
Yeah.
then the downfall happened. But you know,
Shout out to Corey, and then we'll finish it with Rowdy. He says, RB, Tobias needs to finish his story. Book it. Tobias gets a minimum of 3 fast break layups blocked on Wednesday night. There is nothing worse for me watching and calling a game than Tobias having an easy dunk opportunity that results in a soft layup. It
So
really
deflating.
irks me every time. Like, just throw it down, man. Please.
Who do
they
you
don't.
trust?
You don't even have to block the shot. You just have to challenge it because he's going to then try to go around you and throw up the weak, like high off the glass garbage that he does.
It's
Who do you
unreal.
trust more finishing, D'Anthony Melton or Tobias Harris contested layup?
Nobody.
Anthony Melton has, dude, his driving layup on 2K is a 0. It's an absolute 0. He goes up with 2 hands half the time. He has no layup package at all.
I have
Yeah.
a hot take too. I don't care that D'Anthony Melton isn't coming back.
Wow.
What about
I do
Robert Covington? Because I'll never
I don't
forget
really-
that quote.
I don't really care either, to be honest.
I'll never forget Nick Nurse saying that there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Like, I've never heard a coach say that about a player in
Oh,
mid-season.
That was tough.
Mid-season. Like, crazy, man. Glitch said this. Shout out to Glitch. Where's that question at? He said, if we win a ring this season, are we re-signing Tobias Harris? What do you
Yeah,
guys
if we win a ring, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
No.
Like, come
I
on.
think-
Like,
I think Toby wants out of here too. I think he wants no part of being a Sixer ever again, and I get it. I think it's mutual feeling all around.
I know.
They're booing him on the intros. You
Yeah.
listen closely. The DJ plays the music louder when they announce Tobias Harris. They try to drown. I swear to God, they boo him when he's announced. It's getting like, why would you want to play here?
He'll look good in
at
a
that point?
Pistons jersey again next year, though. He'll catch his $25 million a year from Detroit, maybe even more. That they'll talk into him being the veteran leader that locker room needs. He'll get his bag somewhere.
He is absolutely going to a small market team. There's no doubt about it. And he's going to get 20 plus million a year to put up 18 points per game. That's my prediction.
That's what he wants to do. I think the contract was a gift and a curse to him. He's never been that guy,
Right.
And then he was expected to be that guy because he got that contract, and he's not that guy.
Oh man. Anyway, shouts out to everybody in the chat. 2 hours strong. We're still rocking. We're about to shut it down, but yeah, man, we are less than 2 days away from the Sixers and Heat 7 versus 8 seed play-in game. Can the Sixers get it done? Guess we'll have to wait and find out. Shouts out to everybody out there. Hit the like button wherever you guys are watching. Subscribe to all the channels. Philly Take with RB, Run It Back Philly, Sixers Talk with Romp, Pick Swap Media. Support all of us. This was fun, fellas. We definitely have to do this again. If time pending, right? I mean, if the Sixers win, they have 3 days until the series. So I don't know, man. It's interesting. Tough schedule. Tough schedule.
Had a blast. Always a blast, guys. Thank you, man. Always a blast.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys. All right. Catch you on the next one. Wait, hold up. We got one more super chat. Jay Abs, let Tobias go and sign Pascal Siakam to a max.
I've on several occasions called Pascal Siakam Tobias Harris with a permanent green light. So that's kind of my thoughts there. He's more athletic, better rebounder, but little better player overall. But like a lot of the same criticisms we have about Tobias, I throw it right at Siakam. Not a good shooter, all the other stuff.
No, J-Abs, give me your Venmo. I'm giving you that $2 back.
I'll take Siakam.
Oh man. Nah, Pacers in 6.
That's
And
true. We're
that's the
Siakam
series.
fans.
Yeah.
Siakam fans this week.
All right. Catch you guys on the next one.
Later.